I forgot to unmute my mic. So, hi everybody, how are you? Um, so it's good to have you here with us today. So, I'm Jamil. I'm the director of product here at Beetleworks. It's a pleasure to talk to you. So, let me start with a question. So, where are you located? Can you please send me in the chat? So, I'm curious about where you guys connecting from. Because I'm having these sessions every week. So I'm trying to have the sessions in different times. So this one is 4 p.m. my time, so in Brazil. So next week we'll have another one that will be around 11 a.m. Brazilian time as well. So around 4 hours earlier. And I'm curious because I want to make sure that the sessions will have people from different places. So I'm seeing here. So hi Mark, Jordan, Valentina. So London, Italy, London. So good to have you here. So I think that's already 8 or 9 p.m. for you, right? So just so you know, again, next week I'll have another session. So you'll be 4 hours earlier than this one. So I'm having, again, every week I'm having sessions in different times so I can have people from different countries, from different cities to join us. So that's my goal, and that's why I wanted to know where you guys currently based. All right, so I'll do a quick recap here from previous sessions. So first of all, this session will touch mostly on the translator use case in Beetleworks. Uh, Usually I try to show the platform, how it works, our editor, our context sensitive translation. But today I have an idea, so I wanted to do something different. I want to have like a more interactive session. So I don't know if you already had the chance to play around with the platform, if you already subscribed to the platform. So by the way, you have a 14 days free trial with no credit card required. But if you do have the chance to already test the platform, so I want to know if you have like specific topics that you would like to see or to cover in the session. So my goal here is to make this session for you. So do you have questions about, oh, really good, Jordan. Good to know. So you probably have a lot of questions. So do you have questions about our editor or about user configuration or organization units, translation members, or anything in the platform that they would like to ask? If you do so, can you please send it in the chat? So I wanted to have this session focused mostly, if possible, on those main questions that you guys have. But before that, so I give you some time so you can type in the chat questions that you have or that other person has. Let me just share my screen real quick here with you so I can show you um, my agenda for today. All right. Before that, real quick, so this is our website. So under this beetleworks.com slash pricing, you have like the plans here. I'll let you have a look in here. But for translators specifically, most likely the solo plan will be the most suitable for you. But the only thing that I want to show you here is that, again, as I mentioned, so we have this free 14 days trial, no credit card required. So if you want to test it out the platform without adding your credit card to it, please do so. So you can share with me feedback in the next sessions, and then we can talk more about the platform, what could be improved, what would be helpful to have in the platform, because I'm also interested in learning more about that from you. But for today's session, let me open my agenda here. And those are, again, I have some topics in here, but if you have questions, if you have items that you want me to talk about specifically about our editor, about our roadmap, about the features you have. If you have questions in particular, please send in the chat and I will address those. If not, I'm going to cover this agenda that I have in here. So the first step is this one that I mentioned. So creating your account. Again, you go to our website, you go in here, get started for free, 14 days free trial. You just have to enter your name and email. You're going to receive an email from us so you can set up your password and then access our platform. And what I wanted to focus the most today is the editor overview. And if you don't have questions now, but if you have questions during the sessions, please send them in the chat. I wanted to make sure that I'm addressing any questions that you guys have. But let me open here our platform. By the way, so this is a demo environment. Okay, so that's why you have like so many projects here already. But let me open any of those projects and show you our editor. I'm going to give you a quick overview on it. And again, if you have questions or if you have something that you would like to see in particular, please let me know in the chat, right? Okay, so this is our translation editor. Quick overview here. On top right, you have this help button where you can see some shortcuts we have. So by the way, I'm using a Mac, so that's why the shortcuts are displaying these commands in here instead of like the Windows key. If you have a Windows computer, this will adjust automatically to it. On top, you have file name, file size, a workflow step. You have the language combination. So in this case, I have English into Spanish, Latin America. Let me just zoom in a little bit because probably this would be better for you to see it. This is the progress bar. So how much you have completed already in this file in terms of segments. Here you can run some bulk operations, go to a given segment. You can select all segments, confirm all segments. If you have permissions, you also can pre-translate the file from here if it was not pre-translated already. You can also download the translatable or original file here for your reference or for final delivery. And then you have the preview at the bottom. So I'm previewing right now a Word document, as you can see, but this Word document was extracted from our website. So I can change it to web preview in here and type our website link. By the way, I'm typing our website, BuildWorks website, because this content is from our website, but if you have a document from a different website from one of your clients and that website is public, so you don't need to have like a credential to access the page of that website, you can do the same. You can type it in the URL for that website, go to the website, and what's going to happen is that we're going to perform a best attempt to match the content we have in here in the editor with the content in the website. So you can basically have a real-time preview of the content in context, right? So let me show you how this works. So let me just populate a few segments in here. Let me confirm this translation and this one as well. And then, as you can see, right away, this has been translated. So I translate this into Spanish, right? And then this automatically updated the translation here in this website preview to Spanish as well. Let me apply targets. Okay, so now this has been translated and so on and on and on. So you have the full website in here. So everything that is within this document that I'm translating, when I translate the content in here, so add the translation to the target segment, if I have my website open here, it is going to perform a best attempt to display that in my website, right? Okay, let me, oh, by the way, we also have a preview for videos, for subtitles, for docs. So by docs, we mean Excel, Word documents, code preview for those files like HTML, JSON, XML, and some other file extension that have just codes in it. You can also preview that, but let me hide this for now so I can go to the next item. So now covering those tabs I have in here. So comments, you can add comments in here. So for instance, you can communicate with project managers in the project that you are working on. So let's say you made a decision here, and for in this context here, does not make sense to use Stemma. Just an example, right? That's not maybe not a good example, but let's say that this should be system. That should not be translated, right? And that's maybe different from what's the glossary, but that makes sense in this context. So, and you want to pass that information to the project manager responsible for the project, why you made that decision, right? When it comes to not following the glossary. So you can type in a message in here, submitted. Anyone, project manager in this case, who has access to this task will be able to see the comment, respond to it. Hi, Anna. Oh, my neighborhood, by the way. So I'm from Brazil. Nice to meet you. And just so there are new people in the the session now here. So one thing that I would like to ask you. So anyone that who joined in the last few minutes. So if you already subscribed to the platform, you already tested. If there is any topic in specific that you want me to cover in this session, please let me know. I mean, just giving a quick overview here in the editor, but if there are specific questions or topics that you would like to see in the session, please let me know. I want to have this session as interactive as possible. And yeah, so please ping in the chat if you have items that would like specifically to see in this section. All right. In the meantime, let me just continue here with this quick overview. You can also change to private messages. So that's basically a notation for you, right? Okay, so I'm seeing here. Okay, I have some questions here in the chat already. Let me just finish this quick overview, and I'm going to respond to Anna's and Mark's question about the app and data security. Okay, so private, basically, this is a note for yourself, so no one else has access to that. So if you add anything in here and submit it, just myself can see that, right? So no project managers, anyone can see that. Next one is probably the one that you, as a translator, are going to spend most of your time, right? Is where the suggestions live. By suggestions, we mean translation memory suggestions, glossary suggestions, and context-sensitive translation suggestions as well. So all those will live in here. So while you are translating the content, that's probably the tab where we're going to spend most of your time. So you can see all the suggestions here and then apply those to the translation. Next up, instructions. If there are instructions added to a project that you receive, let's say from a translation agency, those will be here, right? And the reference files will also be attached in here, so you can download them and use those files. Next up, QA. So standard QA checks. So you can check for no breakable spaces, additional double spaces. Excuse me. You can check for translation lengths. Like here, you can define the maximum number of words that should be in a particular segment. That's especially helpful for instance, subtitling or for voiceover. And there are several other checks here, like tags, etc. Let me just close this. Next up, search. So this one and the next one are kind of similar. So one is for translation memory, next one is for glossary. You are searching here for anything that's part of those translation memories or glossaries that are associated with the project that you are working on, right? So if I type in here anything like tests, if that's available in the glossaries that are associated with this project, that's going to retrieve the results and show me all the matches with this term test. The same for translation memory. Filters, you can filter by source and target content, like typing Biro in here or Biro works. I can see all the segments, the same for target. Some metadata filters, like I just want to see confirmed or not confirmed, or locked or not locked segments, and so on. I can find and replace content within the editor here at the bottom. Next step is translation changes. Anything, let me just remove this. Any changes that I made to any segment will be stored in here. Even if I don't confirm those changes, they will be stored here. So this is not exactly saying that this is stored in the translation memory. This will only be stored in the translation memory once you confirm the segment. So when you click on this check mark and it turns green, right? That's when you store in the translation memory. But any changes that I made in here is going to be shown here, right? So I know that this person here made some changes to the segment at this time, this date, and then some additional changes, and then finally this person, who is myself, by the way, confirmed the segment at this time and this day. And lastly, the last one is preference. You can set up to deactivate or activate the constant sensitive translation. Translation is mouse, review assessment. You can play around with that. You can change to inline, to columns. You can change to night modes. You can see what else? White spaces like this. So anywhere where there's a white space, you can see this blue circle in here. And that's about it in terms of like a quick overview of the editor. If there are any questions about this or any of those tabs, please let me know in the chat. In the meantime, let me respond to both Anna and Anna Lydia. So about data security. So thank you for the questions to both Annas. So do you have anything in particular that you are concerned about? Because just so I can have like a better understanding. So are you referring specifically to maybe the usage of AI in the platform? You are referring to anything in terms of data, how data is being transported. So just so I can have a better idea on if there are anything in particular that you are more concerned when it comes to security. But respond to your question, in generally speaking, so everything in the platform, any content, anything which flows from the platform, first will only belong you. Only people that has access to your account in the platform will have access to that data. So, for instance, let me show you here. So, under context, in here you have translation memories, you have glossaries. Let me open this here. So when you create accounts in BWX, so basically when you go in there and subscribe to our platform, even for the trial, this will create an account for you specifically in the platform, right? Only people who you invite to the platform will have access to that data. So for instance, you create an account for you, and you have a colleague that you would like to have help from to collaborate with you on the translation of a content, you invite that person to your account. From now on, that person will have access to the data in this translation memory in your account, right? Other than that, no one else has access to that data. So that's the first thing. So each account is separate. Only people who have been invited to one account has access to it and to this data. Translation memories, glossaries, everything is within your account. So only you has access to it. Now, when it comes to storing content in the platform, everything is encrypted. So the data that's stored in your translation memory, in your glossary, data that's in your project, and mentioned documents or text, both everything is encrypted. Everything that's transported is also encrypted. For instance, let me talk about like our AI functionality. So we have this mechanism who sent like content to AI and retrieve our results. So basically what we do, we send, let me show this slide in here. So we take your translation memory, we take your glossary, we take your machine translation suggestions, we send to GPT through a tunnel. This information, first and foremost, is encrypted. So that's the first thing. When we transfer this information to GPT, and it is encrypted, and also the return is also encrypted. That's the first thing. The second thing, this data that's coming from a translation memory, your glossary, your machine translation, is not being stored anywhere other than your translation memory and glossary. By that, I mean, we are not like sending this information and be stored in GPT to be trained, to be used for training for anything else. So to explain that better, maybe I can show you this. So let me open actually GPT here. So a good example would be you have a document and you copy the text from it, like a Word document, you type in here in GPT, right? As soon as you do that, anything that you enter in GPT here, first will be stored. Secondly, will be used for training the model, the engine, right? What we do, this tunnel, it is exclusive to your translation memory and to your glossary. Nothing is being stored. So the content from your translation memory, from your glossaries, lives solidly in your account in BetterWorks. We're just sending pieces of that information to GPT. That's the first thing. Second thing, that information is not being stored or being used for GPT to be trained, right? Differently from what I'm doing here, that I'm sending information. Information sent here, as you can see here, there is like this note, don't share sensitive info here because this is being used for training the models. That's not apply to what we do when it comes to AI. Let me show you here. This, let me deactivate that. Let me activate that again. So we have this. First thing, when you subscribe to the platform and create your account, that will be deactivated. So it's up to you to decide whether you want or not to activate AI usage on your account, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, if you do decide to activate it, there are some other terms are in here, right? I'm going to just read the most important pieces that according to their practice, so when their practice, we mean OpenAI and Microsoft Azure, that are the providers that we use for this context-sensitive translation, all the other AI features we have in the platform. Uh, your data will not be used for training purpose and will be stored for 13 days with encryption at rest and then permanently deleted. So one thing that's important to mention when it says that it is being stored is just in case there are like I think that I have an article here that which explains it better, but it's not for training purpose. Let me just try to find it here. So there you go. So that's the first thing. Does OpenAI train the model on business data? No, we do not use your ChatGPT, enterprise or API data inputs and outputs for training our models. So that's one of the important things we have. And but the other one is for Azure, which says that what is this? Okay, content security for up to 30 days. And it stores that for those 30 days just for abuse monitoring. That's the only thing that's being used, that data. So that's why it's being stored for 13 days, just for abuse monitoring. After that is being deleted. But in this, during this 13 days is not being used for training or for anything. So that's one thing that we always explain is that we are not training GPT, we're not training an engine, right? So we are not receiving like a document or a translation memory for you, uploading to somewhere like GPT, and then training the model based on that input. We are constantly retraining the model. What that means is that you have your translation memory, you have your gloss, right? So we have this picture here. How do we train those? So let me show you what I mean by that. So let me, by the way, to activate that, you have to type it in this. Just make sure that that's not going to be activated by mistake, right? So, and I'm going to activate that for all this. Okay. By retraining constantly, I mean this. So I have this get started here, which is being translated as comenzar. That's not in my glossary, right? I don't have this in the glossary. Let's say that I do want to add maybe this to my glossary. But in my glossary, I want to say that I don't want that to be translated. I want to keep get started as get started, right? Because maybe that's what my clients want. When I store this in my translation memory, let me just save this. All right. From now on, I already trained the model. I trained GPT. Why? Because GPT is retrieving that information. So every single segment, GPT is retrieving this information and then making a decision, making a suggestion based on what is being stored in your translation memory in your glossary, right? So let's say that I received a similar document tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, I decided that I no longer want this to be kept in English, or my client told me that this should be translated from now on. All right. So now what? Now I'm going here. I'm going to update the glossary to comenzar. That's what my client wants me to use. I retrained the model, right? So that's not stored in GPT, right? So on the fly, every single segment, every single thing that you store in your translation memory in your glossary is being used for retraining the model. So that happens on the fly. So if I add this translation for get started in here in segment number 3, and in segment number 4, I also have the same term here, the GPT model, we already use what have been learned from this previous segment because it is stored in my translation memory and glossary to propose a translation for this particular segment here. And the segment, the same will happen throughout the file, right? By retraining, I mean you're not storing information in GPT or sending this for training. It is learning on the fly. It is learning based on what is stored in your translation memory, glossaries, and machine translations. Does that respond to your main questions? If not, I do also have our article in the Help Center here that I can share with you, or maybe I also have in our website. So that's, I think that this is one is important. I'm going to send in here for you all so you can see it. So another thing that's important to mention that we are a SOC 2 Type 2 certified company, and that's like the highest security model we have for this type of platform when it comes to storing data, make sure that data is secure, make sure that data is stored and is transported securely. As I mentioned, I think that we mentioned encryption here. So as I said, everything, all files stored by DataWorks are encrypted, and all traffic between our client API apps use disconnections, SSL or TLS, to keep data transfer secure. Encryption is not limited to our files, all backups, communications, mails, servers, logs, so basically everything, right? So I sent this in the chat so you can read that. We also have more information about that in our Help Center, which if you want to learn more about that, I can also share that with you. Let me just this. So that's what I just mentioned about GPT and how we retrain these models. So there are like additional details in here, but I'm also going to type in here in the chat so you can see it. And yeah, I hope that responds to your questions. If not, please let me know. And if there's anything else in particular that would like to understand better, and I'll be glad to address that. Let me respond now to Mark's question. Are there any plans for a mobile app? Currently not, Mark. I don't have any plans. So because the platform, so we have so much, let me just go back in there. We have so much here on a screen that we don't see that fitting well like in a mobile screen, right? Because you have like source, you have target column, you have suggestions. So to be really to that work well, at least we'll probably uh, have a, no, a computer, because otherwise you're not that all that information not to be able to fit on your screen. So that's one of the main reasons, is also because we understand that putting that in a mobile app will reduce the productivity of the translators, because it may be possible to fit in the screen of a mobile app, but probably you'll be able to show just source and target, and then you have to click somewhere else to open a tab, which will then show you like the suggestions, right? That's uh, the main reasons why we are not thinking about that at the moment. But in the future, we'll see. But is there anything particular that you understand that to be helpful to have in the app, in a mobile app, just so I can understand, like how you plan to use that, like for translation, is for notifications about like new jobs. So how you understand that can help you like with anything that you'll be using the platform. Put in the comments so I can try to better understand that and reply to you. All right. Any questions? Other questions about how this engine works, about security, about the editor, or anything else in particular that you have questions? Like, again, if you already tested the platform, you may have questions specifically. It's for freedom, I guess. I need another smaller laptop. Uh, gotcha. Yeah. Agree. For freedom, it does make sense. I mean, we don't have the app. You cannot open in the browser of your smartphone. I already did that. I mean, it's not really good, just because there's so much information on the screen that's not really helpful unless you're using, for instance, like you are a linguist, a translator, and you there are some projects that have been offered to you in the platform, and you just want to open that to have a quick look on what it is about that document that you receive it before you accept that job, right? That's the only thing that I think that would work fine, because just to see like the source and target, that should be fine, but to actually like translate content or to work with the platform, that's not probably going to be like really helpful, because there's just so much information to fit in a smartphone screen. All right. I have another question for you. So again, if you already use the platform, if you already tested, you may have suggestions. I would like to hear it. So for you as a translator, or someone maybe who works for a translation agency, uh, what would be helpful? What would make a huge difference for your work, for your performance, that you are missing the platform? Is there anything like that? Certainly, there are things like that. But do you have anything in particular, or maybe more than one thing in particular, that you understand that would be great to have in the platform? Because we have our roadmap as a company, just to share that with you. Of course, we have like or planning, or have we have our roadmap. But these sessions that we have here, these workshops, yes, I want to share something with you all. I want to share some knowledge. I want to share. I want to explain to you how the platform operates, but I also want to learn from you, right? Because this is being applied to our product, and if there are features, there are improvements that could be made to the platform that really would really impact your work, your job. If you could share that with me, that would be really helpful. So I can make sure that we will add that to our list of our wish list, and then eventually that can be added to our roadmap and implemented. So if there anything that's really, really impactful for multiple people, multiple translators, that is aligned with your strategy as a company, that's probably going to be prioritized. Just to share that with you so you have an idea on how we treat that. Let me see here the question for Jordan. I noticed that when I translate between English French and French English, the AI suggestions are very useful. Okay, but with English Bulgarian, in Bulgarian English, is anything that's more useful. Why does it happen? That's a good question. So let me create a project in here. I don't think that I have any project with Bulgarian, but let's create one. Give me just a quick second here so I can create a project with that language so we can talk about that. Okay, so let me upload these two files and this training units. I'm going to add myself. So workshop 4. Let me remove all this. So I will add for now just English Bulgarian, and I'm going to create this project. Okay, it's running the automation here. It's processing the file, parsing with the platform, it changed the status. Now I'm going to approve that. So before approving, let me just check. Okay, so it is going to be pre-translated with machine translation. So when I approve a project, it runs another automation which triggers pre-translation of the content. I could also pre-translate with context sensitive right away, but I'm not going to do that for now. And now pre-translation is completed. Let me open the editor. And now let's talk about that. All right, so you mentioned that English and French, the suggestions coming from AI are useful, but English and Bulgarian are not that good, right? So there are a few things in there. So the first thing is that there are more content flowing in general, like everywhere for Google Translate or even to ChatGPT in languages like English, German, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese. So those languages have like a really good amount of content flowing, and AI is learning from all that, right? Not from the platform, but from content that people are using to the ChatGPT website, right? And that helps to train the model. That's one thing. That's the first thing. So when it comes to Bulgarian, it is a common language, is not a rare language, but at the same time, the yeah, at the same time, Bulgarian is not one of the languages that are more common. So there are few fewer data flowing and training the Bulgarian English Bulgarian, Bulgarian English model, right? That's the one thing. The other thing that's most importantly is that uh, AI is basically AI is not AI itself is not a translation model, right? So if I open this ChatGPT, for instance, the main purpose of GPT was not to translate content. That does not mean that it cannot translate content, right? So if I ask anything here, please translate this sentence in here into Bulgarian or Arabic, it is going to do it, right? But originally it was not created for that. How we overcome that? So we create like questions, or we create a prompt, as we call, that will provide the 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 more context as possible to GPT, so GPT can have more information to provide a better translation for me. So what we do basically, so we send content from machine translation, from translation memory, from glossary, right? That's going to give, and also previous segments, next segment. So we send a whole lot of content to this prompt to GPT, so GPT can make a decision. If you already have a translation memory, a glossary in the project that you are testing, Jordan, and you have already stored some sort of content in your translation memory by confirming segments, if you already added key terms to the glossary that are really relevant for the content, that will help and guide AI for the throughout the translations. If you don't provide that, what AI is basically doing is AI is taking this, for instance, the segment number one is taking this machine translation suggestion and trying to make sense of it and propose something to you that may be better, that may be worse. And as you mentioned, most of the time probably is worse than machine translation because that's the only context that GPT has to propose to you something, right? Now, let's say that I have this exact same segment here, and now I'm going to add champions to my glossary. I want champions to not be translated. They should be champions in Bulgarian because I want to. So when I ask GPT to translate that, now I'm providing this machine translation from suggestion from DPL here, plus this glossary suggestion, right? So let me refresh this. All right, so as you can see now, this is the suggestion from machine translation, DPL. The context sensitive is considering, is receiving this feed from machine translation and adding to it what is in the glossary, because usually the glossary has more priority over machine translation suggestions, right? Because usually that's what your client wants you to use. So now I'm going to apply this translation. All right, so what I did here was to give you more context to GPT so you can make a better decision. All right, but let's say that you are still unhappy with the result, right? What else can you do? You can make changes to it. So by the way, I don't speak any words in Bulgarian, so I just going to make some crazy changes in here just to explain like the logic behind it. I'm going to delete this, and let's say that this translation now is good, right? Let's say that I reviewed this translation is good. I'm going to confirm this. All right. So now it is stored in my translation memory as well. So I have the translation memory, glossary, and entity suggestion. Next segment, I already have champions again, right? And let me refresh this. Okay. So it's going to take, but I don't have the suggestions from the translation memory, but it is now receiving the champions from the machine translation, this entry here from the machine translation, and proposing something else. As you can see, this time it is not adding the champions to the content here. The answer for that is not because of a bug, it's because let me just take this from here, but because GPT is trying to make sense of the context and propose something that may be good or may not be good enough. And it is making a logical decision based on the context that is being provided. By context, I mean, again, machine translation, translation memory, glossary, previous segment, next segment, the current segment, of course. And why GPT is not proposing champions to be added here is because GPT understands that giving this context, all this context in here, does not make sense to have champions in this content, right? That's why it is not being added to this as a suggestion here. It's different from like translation memory. Translation memory is just going to propose to you something that is stored in there. GPT is making analysis on the context and make a decision to try to propose it to you something. So in the end, that's why, or one of the main reasons why you as a translator is the decision maker, right? So GPT is proposing to you something, you decide if that's good enough or not. If that's good enough, good, great. If that's not good enough, the main thing for us, not for you as translator, but for us as humans to understand is that I'm training it. I'm training this engine, right? And for you specifically as a translator, you are training by feeding content to glossaries, feeding content to translation memories. That over time will guide better the AI on how you usually translate the content in terms of tone, in terms of keywords, in terms of the general voice that you usually put in your translation. GPT will learn from that based on the inputs that you are storing in glossary translation memories. But so I try to explain a lot of concepts at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but in summary, basically, to improve this, it relies on content that's stored in your translation memory and glossary. So those are the main factors, right? And most importantly, GPT is just GPT or this context sensitive. All those are just tools, right? And you as translator are the decision makers. And one thing that I encourage you all as translators is to again make sure that you are storing content, translation memory, glossaries, but do not be frustrated if the first few segments or maybe the couple projects that you translate for the first time using the engine are not the suggestions for GPT are not up to your standards as a translator because again it is learning from you. So the more content you add to it, translation memories and glossary, the closer the suggestions will be to what you as a translator would usually use for the content, right? But again, GPT is never going to be you, right? So that's why you are the decision maker, and that's why it is just a tool. Which, as you just mentioned here, you'd suggest using context sensitive. That's good to hear. Um, that's why that's never going to replace translator, right? Because in the end, you are the one who knows exactly what should be delivered to the client, right? What makes more sense to it. These are just to try to guide you, help you, assist you whenever that's possible, and you are like more a teacher who is trying to teach an intern that's going to help you with the translators that you are making and delivering to the clients. And just commenting what you mentioned about the suggestions, I do agree. I mean, I sometimes I pre-translate with context sensitive. So this here, this option, the only thing that there are just a few things. The first thing is that it takes more time. So you if you already did that, you probably noticed. So it takes more time for to pre-translate with context sensitive in comparison to machine translation, translation memory. I'm talking about like it's going to take you 30 seconds to pre-translate from machine translation to translation memory, and maybe 5 minutes to pre-translate with context sensitive the whole file, right? It's not something crazy, but if you're in a hurry, in a rush, that's something to consider. The other thing that, in my opinion, is more important, excuse me, is that if you pre-translate everything with context sensitive, you you may speed up the process if oh gotcha okay in context all right but let me just address that because I think that's also important. So if you pre-translate the whole file with context sensitive translation, that may be helpful if the quality is already up to your standards. Again, for that to happen, you have to have already worked with it for quite some time and have content in your glossary translation memories. If it is not, it is maybe it may add additional work for you. Why? If the content is not, it's just pre-translated with translation memory, right? And everything else is empty like this, whenever you click on a segment, it's going to automatically populate with the context sensitive. And what's the difference, right? The difference is that, again, as this change that I made here, the champions I made on the first segment, if I pre-translate the whole file with the knowledge that I had by that time, which means that I did not have, when I pre-translated this, the champions in the glossary, right? The whole file will be pre-translated without this in the glossary. So the only that may be relevant or not, but the main thing that we're going to lose is that the opportunity to use that learning on the fly that we have in the engine, right? Because I made a change to a segment, I teach it the engine something by adding a term to the glossary. If I go every single segment that's empty and I receive a suggestion on the fly in here, it is going to use that knowledge that that I received from the previous segments that I translated, right? If I pre-translate everything and then I have to change champions, I have to do it for the whole file. I have to go one by one. and apply this, and maybe check if I had to change something else here to adjust to this change in the content. But all in all, I think that right now my recommendation is to not be translated with context sensitive, just because you may lose so much in terms of learning, this learning on the fly. What I would recommend personally is to pre-translate with translation memory only and leave everything empty, because again, then the engine is going to populate this on the fly based on the learning uh, from the previous segments, right? If you are in a rush, then I would probably prioritize pre-translate with context sensitive over machine translation, unless it is a situation, as like Jordan mentioned, where Jordan already knows that for a fact that the Bulgarian quality as of now is not good enough in comparison to English French, right? So probably makes more sense for that scenario to pre-translate with machine translation. But maybe like as Jordan is adding more content to translation memory glossary for Bulgarian, maybe within next 2 weeks, maybe within 2 months, Jordan will be confident because he's seeing that the quality for the overall quality for Bulgarian, the suggestions from context sensitive have improved so much based on the learning that we receive it, that now Jordan feel confident. Okay, so now maybe I can pre-translate Bulgarian as well with context sensitive, right? But I think that's for me specifically, that's the thing that I think that's more important to keep in mind when I say like not being frustrated with using the context sensitive, is because it is learning, right? You're teaching, it is learning. May take some time for it, depending on how much content you're translating, how many key terms you are into the glossary. But that's why you also have the possibility of deactivating those. Again, if context sensitive is not helping you out, maybe you can deactivate it for now. And maybe let's see within 1 month how it goes. Maybe I can activate it again and see, okay, now the quality looks better. Now this is being helpful for me, right? Um, very good. So we have a few more minutes. Let's respond to the question that I just received from Anna here. Can the platform be used offline? Unfortunately, not, Anna. So the platform, everything is online here in the platform, is happens on the fly. And one of the main things in here, there are several reasons, but one of the main things, especially for the management of the project, for clients, for translation agencies as well, is that if you translate that offline, they can't see the progress in here, right? For small files, that's not a problem, but there are several cases where like they have files with thousands of segments, and for the project manager, for the end client, it's important for them to know that this is on track, this is already started, this is in progress. So that's one of the main reasons why you don't have this offline. And we don't have any plans to make this content offline as well. So that a good translation, a good connection with internet is important to make the best use of the platform. And I hope this responds to your question. Any other questions you have? Uh, any topics that you would like to cover? Again, we have just 6 more minutes, but I still have time if you have questions for me or suggestions again. So Jordan, maybe if you have questions, or excuse me, suggestions, maybe not this session, but next week we'll be here again. I hope to see you all, by the way, in the next session. That will probably be 4 hours earlier than this one. If you do have questions from now or suggestions into the next session, please do let me know. Um, and this will be a good time for you, if you are not a subscriber yet of the platform, to test it out. So next week you may have suggestions for me, because I really want to hear you. I really want to make sure that the platform is progressing in a way that makes sense for the people who are using the platform. And translators are a huge part of the users that are using the platform, and having the platform performing well for you is really important for us, right? One thing, final thing, I believe. So we have our YouTube channel. Just so you know, so this session is being recorded. All the previous sessions were recorded as well, so this is live in here. But all the previous sessions were already recorded, so this was 1 month ago. So I cover like pretty much everything when it comes to like creating projects, creating users, and everything. So if you want to give a watch, please feel free to do so. We also have other videos here that are really interesting. But if there is anything that I did not cover in the session, and maybe when you start testing out the platform, uh, you have questions about large or editor, I may have already responded in previous sessions. If I have not, or maybe if you don't have time to watch it, please join us in the next week, and I can try to cover that. Jordan, it's my pleasure always, and thank you as well, Anna. I hope to learn a bit more about subtitling functionality in the next session. Cool. Okay. I will take notes here. I can cover that for sure. I can cover from the creation of the files that are used for subtitles, and also the preview in the editor, right? And again, if anyone else has any other topics, maybe not today, but in the next session, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I'll be glad to respond to your questions, and even create like specific sessions that are addressing those particular items that you guys have questions about, right? And suggestions as well. Please, again, keep in mind that if you have suggestions, next week you have opportunity again to share with me, so I can learn from you what's going to be helpful to have in the platform. Is going to cause a good impact for your work, for your performance, right? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mario, Mark, as well. Thank you, Nina. Pleasure to have you here again. This was recorded. This will be available on our YouTube channel, all the previous sessions as well. Hope to see you next week. We'll send another invite. It will be 4 hours earlier. Maybe that's going to be better for some of you, especially people that are in the Europe. And I hope to see you soon. I'm glad to see and have you all here, right? Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Pleasure to have you here. And I hope that you can give it a try to be the worst, right? Thank you. See you next week. Bye bye.